So tonight I would like to tell you my favorite story that I brought back from London. Unforgettable story and memory. And before it gets cold and before I forget it, I want to put it out there just in case. This is a proof that I lived this. This is all true story. Now, this story is tied to one song that almost didn't make it to the album. The reason being the song music style didn't represent the direction I was going anymore. However, that being said, I realized the reason I decided to make this album to begin with was to tell the entire life story that I lived in that city. And missing this song was like throwing away the last piece of the puzzle. Because this song was written in the midst of this chaos, standing at a crossroads that determined my fate early on in my London life. And I was going through this process. I now call this London's initiation ritual. And if you were to move to London, it's inevitable. And you go through this, but it's going to train you like crazy. You're going to come out the end of the tunnel hard as nail, and it's going to get you ready for the life that's coming to you. I'm talking about flat hunting. Now, I moved 3 times personally within 2 years. I knew somebody who moved 9 in 1 year. If you live in London, it might not surprise you. We all know these people, but my second move, this is the time this song was written, The Elevator. But my story is about my first experience of finding my own room. Because it is very unusual. And some people say it's like, oh wow, it's like a miracle, like magical. But it really is. And I used to say I manifested it. And it's that surreal. But things like that kept occurring to me. And this was just the beginning. Now, prior coming to London, people told me, wow, you're going to London, and they almost like trying to scare me or something. Like, they're like, oh, London, like cost of living is expensive and the job market is crazy and the flat hunting is impossible, blah 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 blah. Like, I'm not going to London to relax, I'm going for adventure. And because of this, quote unquote delusional positivity, this attitude, mindset I carry everywhere, in hindsight, this helped me to find the flat in the way that I found it. I came to London with nothing but 2 years of work visa and 2 weeks of reservation in a hostel. It was in Kensington, and literally, I didn't know anything about London before I come in. And I started from the scratch. So in 2 weeks, I had to find a job and the flat. Well, as soon as I landed, I started researching and reached out to everybody and booked a bunch of viewings. And I remember the first viewing I went, on the map it looked like, 30 minutes away. But it ended up becoming like 2 hours. And I didn't realize at this point how gigantic this city was. And obviously, riding a bus was the cheapest way. So I started going to all the viewings on buses, on the second floor, the double-decker. In hindsight, this was the wisest thing I've ever done. because I was slowly, unknowingly learning the geography of London. If I were to go everywhere by, tube, I don't get to see all the views. And honestly, my favorite thing about London to this day is London buses, because I have so many memories riding on it, and I cried, laughed, everything happened on the bus, and I am so grateful. But anyway, enough about buses. For the first week, I went to a handful of viewings, but I couldn't find anything good enough. But I wasn't gonna lower my standard. I wasn't gonna compromise at all. It didn't. Oh, of course, it scared me. I was in a foreign land. I knew nobody except for 2 friends. But in terms of finding a way to survive, I had to do it on my own. But I was never gonna compromise. So I kept looking. I stayed on my path, so to speak. And one day, after another unsuccessful viewing, I had 5-6 hours to kill before another viewing at night. So I decided to explore this part of the city I think I never explored before. And quickly I came across this beautiful old graveyard. I was blown away. I loved it. Next to the graveyard, there was this big street that goes from north to south, and I started walking down. And I remember this plan that I came up before the trip. I came up with this crazy idea that I'm gonna knock on the door at Femme Fatale Tattoo and ask Grace Neutral if she gonna hire me, because I needed a job. And if you don't know who Grace Neutral is, she's one of the pioneers of body modification scene, and she's kind of like responsible for making hand poke tattoo and modern body modification into mainstream, and we always adored her. So I knew she lived in London, and I look on the map, and sure enough, she has a studio in this place called Broadway Market. Yes, that Broadway Market. And sure enough, it's not that far from here, So I decided, alright, today is the day I'm gonna go talk to Grace Neutral. It's gonna be crazy. I'm excited, and kept going. Now the street got busier and busier, and this neighborhood looked like nothing that I've seen before in London. And I already liked it, but when I came across this intersection where the station is on the right and on the left, there was this big outdoor market, and people selling fruits and food, street food, and this was extremely cheap. Like I said, I was staying in Kensington, and imagine coming from Kensington to this one bucket, 5 avocados, a pound, 2 boxes of grapes for like £1.50. Like, what the hell is this? And I was like, I really love this place. And by the way, this vibe, it was like, very much working class, immigrant, very like diverse too, mixed with like, hipsters and like very like artistic vibe, but also like, just very vibrant. Caribbean, tropical, that kind of like energy I got. And I instantly was magnetized and drawn to this place. And this is the moment I'll never ever forget in my life, is that I had this, I still don't know why and how, and can't explain even, but I had this internal knowing, this knowingness that I'm gonna live here. Not like I want to live here, but like I knew I was gonna end up here. I don't know how. But I kept walking, and 3 minutes later, I passed by this pub. Now, somebody talked to me from the window. He said, "Hey, do you want to try my brownie?" And if you know me, I straight up ignore people talking to me on the street. So I was gonna just walk away. But like then, again, can't explain. Something in me told me to go back. And I went back and I asked the guy, because I was vegan at the time, I asked him, "Is this plant-based?" And he said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Is this free?" He's like, "Yes, it's sample." So I was like, okay, I'll try it. And not gonna lie, this was the best brownie I've ever had in my life to this day. And we started chatting, but one thing I noticed right away is that this guy was playing the music that I expected everybody in London to be playing all over the city. And this was the first time I heard somebody playing Trojan Ska and skinhead reggae. So I was like, whoa, you like Pressure Drop? And we instantly hit off. And he invited me in. Now, you know me, I am very, very selective and sensitive to who I talk to and engage with. And I can smell when people try to be like, slimy, but I can tell this guy is a very good person. And I really liked him already. But so we started chatting. He was like, "So what are you doing here?" And I was like, "I'm Tsubasa from Japan, and I just came to London this week. And I'm looking for a flat, looking for a job. I know nothing about London. Nice to meet you." And he was like, "Whoa, okay, well, I live across the street, and I happen to have vacancy in one of our rooms, and I need to fill this ASAP." And I was like, "Oh, can I see the room?" And as we were talking, his girlfriend walks in. And soon later, his another flatmate walks in. Now, everybody who lived in that house that we were talking about happened to be here in the cafe at the same time when I walked in. Interesting, huh? That's what I thought. Now, these are good people, and I liked them a lot already. And I was telling them I really like this neighborhood already. Where is this? And I went to Camden expecting it to be the center of subculture, but I was so disappointed because it was so gentrified, touristy, and shitty shops that have t-shirts that says "I love London" and shit like that. And the girlfriend goes, "Oh yeah, Camden is not what it used to be, but this place right here, this is what you've been looking for. This is Dalston." And the Italian guy goes, "You're in East London. East is best." And this interaction, this moment right here, is the reason why I'm so, still to this day, obsessed with East London, Hackney, and Dalston. Because this was my roots. This was this felt like the baptism. And still sends chill down my spine is that I came across this randomly, or should I say randomly? And I instantly fell in love, and I felt at home. And prior to this, I was walking around everywhere trying to find a flat. Places like Soho, South Bank, Big Ben, and, Camden even. And none of those places felt right for me. And I was very much I'm in a new country alone, and not gonna lie, I was very lonely and starting to get so scary, and I felt so disconnected. But this place that I just arrived, that I instantly felt at home, even though I don't even have a room yet. But I felt like I found it. I got it. Now, I didn't even look the room yet. So I asked him, well, can I see the room? And they show me the room, and I kid you not, first day I arrived to London, I sat at a food court of Whole Foods in Kensington, and I opened my journal, and I wrote all the things I want happen to me. And one of the things, first priority was a room. So I wrote a kind of room I want in this city. And this room they are showing to me was almost identical to what I wrote. Now I was, doing all this visualization and affirmation back then. And I was like, of course this happens. And anyway, I was like, I want this room. It was cheap too, And he was like, I understand. I want to give this to you, but we have another girl coming to see the room tonight. So I have to show her the room. But to be honest with you, I really like you already. So I want to give this room to you. But I'll let you know tonight. Okay? And I was like, yes, I have to go to another viewing too. So I'll let you know too. So we shook hands and we parted. I really liked this guy's attitude because it showed transparency and also fairness. Now, fast forward, that night I received a text that I got the room. Just like that. Now going back to the song though, The Elevator. That song was written during the second move. I unfortunately had to move out of the first flat due to some circumstance, but this time I'm experiencing a lot of resistance. And it's not going well, unlike the first time. This time, because I have assumption and trying to manufacture and force things and essentially trying to replicate the magic, which never works that way. And I'm trying to insist on how it should come to fruition and all these things. I'm getting frustrated and desperate and terrified that I'm going to become homeless. And this is the time when things got really dark. And on the bus, I almost felt like I was shaking, and I almost felt my mind leaving the body. Therefore, the lyrics, leave all your flesh below and let it be paralyzed by fear. And also in the song, I'm singing, where's my home? Where's my home? I'm demanding I did everything. I saw the signs and I manifested my first flat. I got everything I wanted. Now where is it? I'm being tested. You're not being tested. You're just swimming upstream. Of course you're going to experience resistance. You are blocking all these avenues of how amazing opportunities that you can never ever think of, trying to come into you, and you blocking by forcing things to work in a certain way that you think should work. But I did everything with all the information I had back then, and I didn't know better. But this was a essential process necessary to go through this for me at the time. And eventually I stepped out of the way, and actually the second house I ended up in, I got even better room, Not in Dalston, but this was, as soon as I walked in this room, I was like, this is a room of my dream. And spoiler alert, I have a song about this room in the album later on. I'm not going to tell you yet, but now what I personally got out of this experience is that if you have good attitude and right mindset, regardless of what people tell you or what the circumstance looks like, all kinds of crazy, magical thing gonna happen to you. And I know this. Because this is not even the only story I have. This kind of things happen to me all the time now. That being said though, the reason I was able to start my London life in such a magical way was due to the fact I was able to meet these people. And time after time after time, like the lesson I keep learning, the punches I keep getting in the face, every time I forget this, is that human connection, friendship, most important thing in the world. And I'm not gonna even try to preach it to you or pretend that I know better, because like, this is like talking to myself. I was able to start my life in the way I started, beautiful way, because these people like decided to take me under the wing. Like this Japanese guy who just they randomly found on the street. And for them to trust me enough to pay bills and rent in the most expensive city in the world when I had no job is beyond words. And due to the circumstance how we parted, we don't talk anymore. But I'll never forget what they done to me. So thank you so much. Now this is just the beginning of my life. It just started. So there's more coming. This is just the tip of the iceberg, but I'll see you soon. East London Eternal.